A 14-year-old girl walks out of school. She never makes it home. February 12, 1998. Maui Preparatory Academy. 3:47 p.m. Lani Kapule, honor student, hula dancer, dreamer, slings her blue backpack over her shoulder and steps into the afternoon sun. She's wearing her favorite purple hoodie. A dolphin keychain dangles from her bag. She waves goodbye to friends at the intersection of Front Street and Lahainaluna Road. They split up. She walks alone. By 4:15 p.m. she should be at her front door. She never arrives. Her mother calls the school at 5:02 p.m. No answer. Panic floods her chest. By 5:30 p.m. her father drives the route, every street, every corner, looking for his daughter. Nothing. At 6:15 p.m. they call the police. By 7 p.m., flashlights slice through the darkness as search teams comb the streets. By midnight the entire island knows. Lani Kapule has vanished. No scream. No witness. No trace. Just gone. This is not a story about what might have happened. This is the story of what did happen, and the man who buried the truth for 25 years. A man the community trusted. A man who smiled at parents. A man who taught their children. A man who killed Lani Kapule, and then went home for dinner. How does a 14-year-old girl disappear in broad daylight on an island where everyone knows everyone? The answer will shock you. Before we go any further, we want to hear from you. If this story grips you the way it gripped us, hit that subscribe button right now. It helps us keep telling these stories that need to be told. And drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? Tokyo? London? New York? Right here in Hawaii? True crime connects us across borders, across oceans. We're all here because we believe the truth matters. Now let's go back to Maui. Back to 1998. Back to the day paradise lost its innocence, and a family lost everything. Lani Kapule was not just another name in a police file. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a girl with dreams as wide as the Pacific Ocean. Born on July 3, 1983, Lani grew up in Lahaina, Maui in a close-knit Hawaiian family. Her father, Koa Kapule, was a boat captain, a man who knew the sea like the back of his hand. Her mother, Malia, taught second grade at Lahaina Elementary. Lani was the youngest of 3 siblings, adored by her older brother and sister, who often teased her for spending too much time sketching sea turtles in her journal. Lani was pure aloha spirit. That's what everyone said. Teachers, friends, neighbors. She was the kind of kid who stopped to pet stray dogs, who volunteered at beach cleanups without being asked, who smiled at strangers like they were old friends. She had a laugh that could light up a room, bright, unguarded, full of life. She loved the ocean. Weekends were spent snorkeling at Honolua Bay, diving beneath the surface to watch the coral gardens sway in the current. She kept a journal filled with sketches of marine life, sea turtles, manta rays, dolphins. She wanted to be a marine biologist. She wanted to study the creatures she loved, to protect them, to understand their world. At Maui Prep, Lani was an honor student. Quiet but confident. Never in trouble. She wasn't loud or flashy, she didn't need to be. Her kindness spoke louder than words. She had a small circle of close friends, the kind of friendships built on trust and shared secrets. She was into hula dancing, practicing for hours in her backyard, her movements graceful, her focus intense. She was 14 years old. Still a child in so many ways. Still figuring out who she wanted to be. Her favorite color was purple. Her favorite food was pineapple upside-down cake. Her favorite song was Over the Rainbow by Israel Kamakawiwo'ole. She had a habit of humming it while doing homework. She was, by every account, a good kid. The kind of kid who didn't just disappear. But on February 12, 1998, she did. And the Lani Kapule the world knew, the girl with the bright laugh and the big dreams, would never be seen again. What happened to her in those final moments? Who took her? And why did it take 25 years to find out? Let's start with the place she called home. Maui in 1998 was paradise. At least that's what the postcard said. White sand beaches. Turquoise water. Swaying palms. A place where tourists came to escape the stress of the mainland, where locals lived slow, sun-soaked lives. Lahaina, on Maui's western shore, was a small town where everyone knew their neighbors. Doors were left unlocked. Kids rode bikes until sunset. Crime was rare. Violent crime? Almost unheard of. The island felt safe. Isolated, yes, but safe. Maui wasn't immune to problems, of course. There were petty thefts, the occasional bar fight, domestic disputes. But kidnappings? Murders? Those were things that happened somewhere else. Not here. Not in paradise. That's what made Lani's disappearance so shocking. This wasn't supposed to happen here. Not to a girl like Lani. Not in a town where everyone knew everyone, where secrets didn't stay buried for long. But evil doesn't care about zip codes. Evil doesn't check the weather before it strikes. And in 1998, something dark slipped into the sunlight of Maui, something that would shatter the island's sense of security forever. Lahaina was the kind of place where people waved at each other from their cars. Where teachers knew their students by name. Where parents trusted the community to look out for their kids. That trust made them vulnerable. Because when danger wears a familiar face, when it smiles and waves and drives a sensible car, it's almost impossible to see it coming. On February 12, 1998, Lani Kapule walked the same route she'd walked 100 times before. Past the old banyan tree. Past the library. Past the houses where neighbors sat on their porches, watching the world go by. She should have been safe. She wasn't. And what happened next would haunt Maui for 25 years. Let's reconstruct February 12, 1998. Minute by minute. Hour by hour. Because somewhere in the details, the small, mundane moments of an ordinary day, lies the key to understanding what happened to Lani Kapule. 7:15 a.m. Lani sits at the kitchen table eating breakfast with her mother. Cereal. Orange juice. A banana. She's wearing her purple hoodie, the one with the front pocket she always keeps her hands in. Malia asks if she has everything for school. Lani nods. She's quiet this morning, still waking up. But she smiles when her mom reminds her to have a good day. 7:48 a.m. Lani's older brother drops her off at Maui Prep. She grabs her backpack, blue with a dolphin keychain clipped to the zipper, and waves goodbye. He watches her walk through the front gates. She disappears into the crowd of students. 8 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. Lani attends her classes. Math, English, Science with Mr. Keller. Lunch with friends in the cafeteria. Everything is normal. Teachers later report nothing unusual. She seemed happy. Engaged. She turned in her homework on time. She laughed with her friends. She had no idea it was the last normal day of her life. 2:45 p.m. School lets out. Lani stops at her locker. She grabs a textbook, tucks it into her backpack. The hallway is loud, students shouting, locker doors slamming, the chaos of dismissal. Lani walks out the front entrance. 3:15 p.m. Lani is seen leaving campus with a group of friends. They walk together down Front Street, talking, laughing. At the intersection of Front Street and Lahainaluna Road, they split up. Some go left. Some go right. Lani continues straight, the route that will take her home. She's alone now. 3:30 p.m. Mrs. Akana, a neighbor, sees Lani walking past the old banyan tree near the library. Lani waves. Mrs. Akana waves back. Later she'll remember thinking how polite Lani always was. How she always smiled. That's the last confirmed sighting. 3:47 p.m. This is the estimated time Lani would have reached the turn toward her street, a residential area just 3 blocks from the school. She should have been home in 5 minutes. She never makes the turn. 4:15 p.m. Malia Kapule expects Lani to walk through the front door. The house is silent. Malia checks the clock. Lani is never late. She's always home by 4:15. Always. Malia waits. 4:30 p.m. Still no Lani. Malia calls her husband. She's not home yet. Koa tells her to give it a few more minutes. Maybe Lani stopped at a friend's house. But Lani wouldn't do that without calling. 5:02 p.m. Malia calls Maui Prep. No one answers. School's over. Everyone's gone home. Panic begins to set in. 5:30 p.m. Koa drives the route Lani should have taken. Every street. Every alley. He peers into yards, scans the sidewalks. Nothing. 6:15 p.m. They call the police. 7 p.m. Officers arrive. Search teams are mobilized. Flashlights sweep through the streets. Volunteers knock on doors. By nightfall, the entire town is looking for Lani Kapule. Somewhere in those 47 minutes, between 3:30 p.m. and 4:17 p.m., Lani vanished. What happened in that window would remain a mystery for 25 years. The first 48 hours after a disappearance are critical. They're the window when leads are fresh, when memories are sharp, when the chances of finding someone alive are highest. In Lani's case, those 48 hours were chaos. Maui Police Department wasn't equipped for this. Missing children were rare on the island and the department was small, maybe 150 officers covering the entire island. But they mobilized fast. Every available officer was pulled in. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on every door, questioning every person who might have seen something. Volunteers flooded the streets. Parents, teachers, surfers, shop owners. People who'd never met Lani but couldn't stand the thought of a child lost. They searched parks, beaches, alleys, abandoned buildings. They combed the shoreline, checked the harbor, peered into drainage ditches. Helicopters circled overhead, scanning the terrain with infrared cameras. Divers checked the water. Search dogs were brought in. They picked up Lani's scent near the school, tracked it for 3 blocks into a residential area, then lost it. Just stopped. As if Lani had been plucked from the earth. Detectives interviewed Lani's friends. Every single one. They asked the same questions over and over. Did Lani seem upset? Was she fighting with anyone? Did she have a boyfriend? Was there anyone who made her uncomfortable? The answers were all the same. No, no, no. Lani was a good kid. Everyone said it. She didn't have enemies. She didn't sneak out. She didn't have secret relationships. She was just Lani. Sweet, quiet, dependable. The family was devastated. Malia couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She sat by the phone waiting for it to ring, praying for news, any news. Koa barely spoke. He drove the streets at night, searching, calling Lani's name into the darkness. Every phone call felt like cruel hope. Days passed. No body. No ransom note. No witnesses. No leads. The community held vigils. Hundreds of people gathered at the harbor, lighting candles, holding photos of Lani, praying for her safe return. The local news ran stories every night. Lani's face was everywhere, on flyers taped to telephone poles, on missing person segments, on the front page of the Maui News. Malia gave tearful interviews. Please, she begged. If you have my daughter, just bring her home. We won't ask questions. We just want her back. But the silence was deafening. As the days turned into weeks, hope began to curdle into dread. The searches slowed. The news coverage faded. The volunteers went back to their lives. And Lani Kapule was still missing. The question haunted the island. Where was she? Had she been taken by a stranger? Had she run away? Was she alive somewhere, scared and alone? Or was she already gone? No one knew. And that not knowing, that terrible, suffocating uncertainty, was its own kind of torture. 3 weeks after Lani disappeared, a hiker found her backpack. It was March 5, 1998. A man named Tom Reeves was hiking a remote trail on the slopes of the West Maui Mountains, a rugged, rarely traveled area miles from where Lani was last seen. He was off the main path, cutting through dense brush, when he saw it, a splash of blue wedged behind a cluster of volcanic rocks. He walked closer. It was a backpack. Whoa, dirty, partially hidden. He opened it. Inside, a math textbook, a notebook filled with handwriting and doodles, a half-eaten granola bar, a student ID card. The name on the ID, Lani Kapule. Reeves's blood ran cold. He called the police immediately. Within an hour, the site was swarming with officers. Detective Keone Meho, the lead investigator on Lani's case, stood over the backpack, staring at it like it might offer answers. This was hers. No question. The blue backpack with the dolphin keychain. Lani's name written inside in black Sharpie. Her math textbook. Her notebook, pages filled with her handwriting, her sketches of sea turtles, her scribbled notes from class. But no sign of Lani herself. Police cordoned off the area. Forensic teams combed every inch of the site. Search dogs were brought in. They found nothing. No clothing. No blood. No struggle. No body. Just the backpack. The location made no sense. Lani had no reason to be on that trail. She'd never hiked there before. Friends confirmed it wasn't a spot she frequented. She didn't even like hiking, she preferred the beach. So how did her backpack end up miles from where she disappeared? Detectives theorized she'd been abducted, driven to the trail, and the backpack discarded to throw off the investigation. It was a staging, an attempt to mislead them. But they didn't know that yet. At the time, the backpack felt like a lead. It felt like progress. They searched the area for days, convinced Lani's body must be nearby. They found nothing. The backpack only deepened the mystery. It raised more questions than it answered. Had Lani been killed and her body hidden somewhere else? Had she been taken off the island? Was this a random act of violence or something more calculated? Meho couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The placement of the backpack felt deliberate. Too deliberate. But he had no proof. No suspects. No witnesses. Just a backpack that had been left in the wilderness, like a breadcrumb trail leading nowhere. In hindsight, it was a lie. A cruel, calculated lie. But it would take 25 years to figure that out. Lani's disappearance didn't just break her family. It fractured the entire island. Maui, the place where people left doors unlocked, where kids roamed free until sunset, suddenly felt dangerous. Parents walked their children to school. Curfews were enforced. Strangers were eyed with suspicion. Fear settled over Lahaina like a fog. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said Lani had run away, that she'd gotten into trouble and bolted. Others whispered about a predator lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting. Gossip pointed fingers at drifters, tourists, anyone who seemed off. The local news ran stories for weeks. Lani's face was everywhere, on flyers stapled to telephone poles, on missing person segments that aired during prime time, on posters taped to storefront windows. Her image became synonymous with the island's loss of innocence. Lani Kapule gave tearful interviews, her voice breaking as she begged for her daughter's return. "She's just a child," Lani said, tears streaming down her face. "Please, if you know anything at all, call the police. We just want her home." Koa stopped going to work. He couldn't focus, couldn't function. Their home became a shrine to a girl who might never come back. Photos on every wall, Lani's room untouched, her bed still made. The community rallied. Fundraisers were held to support the search efforts. Volunteers organized search parties every weekend. Prayer circles formed at the harbor, candles flickering in the ocean breeze. But beneath the solidarity was something darker: fear. If it could happen to Lani, it could happen to anyone. Parents started questioning everything. Who could they trust? Which neighbors were really neighbors? Which teachers were safe? The island's tight-knit sense of community began to unravel. Suspicion crept into conversations. People who'd lived side by side for years suddenly felt like strangers. Maui's innocence died the day Lani vanished. And as the months turned into years, the town learned to live with an open wound. Lani's case became part of the island's identity, a ghost story whispered at night, a cautionary tale told to children. But the Kapule family couldn't move on. They couldn't grieve because they didn't know what they were grieving. Was Lani dead? Was she suffering somewhere? Was she waiting for someone to find her? The not knowing was unbearable. And as the case grew colder, the questions grew heavier. Would they ever find out what happened to Lani Kapule? Or would she remain a mystery forever, a 14-year-old girl frozen in time, lost in paradise? For Detective Keone Meho, Lani Kapule was more than a case. She was a ghost. Meho had been with Maui PD for 12 years when Lani disappeared, and he'd worked dozens of cases: thefts, assaults, domestic disputes. But missing children? That was different. Missing children cases were supposed to have answers. Bodies, suspects, confessions, something. But Lani? She was vapor. Meho interviewed over 200 people in the first 6 months. He followed every tip, no matter how absurd. A psychic claimed she'd seen Lani near the ocean. Meho drove to the location. Nothing. An anonymous caller said they'd seen a girl matching Lani's description at a gas station on the Big Island. Meho flew there. It wasn't her. He drove the route from Maui Prep to Lani's house hundreds of times, looking for something, anything, they'd missed. A broken fence. A hidden trail. A place someone could have grabbed her without being seen. He studied the backpack site until he could draw it from memory. He measured distances, analyzed sight lines, questioned hikers who frequented the trail. He kept Lani's photo on his desk. Every day he looked at it. Her bright smile. Her purple hoodie. Her whole life ahead of her. His wife said he talked about Lani in his sleep. But leads dried up. Witnesses' memories faded. The case went cold. Other crimes demanded attention. New cases piled on his desk. The file on Lani Kapule sat on a shelf, gathering dust. But Meho never forgot. Even after he retired in 2015, Lani haunted him. He'd think about her on quiet nights, wonder where she was, if she'd suffered, if her family would ever find peace. He'd drive past Maui Prep sometimes, just to see the place where she'd last been seen. He wasn't alone. Other detectives who'd worked the case carried Lani with them too. Cold cases do that. They burrow into your soul, set up camp, refuse to leave. There's something uniquely torturous about unsolved cases. You can't close the book. You can't move on. You carry the victim with you, their face, their voice, their absence, like a weight you can't put down. Meho had a recurring dream. In it, Lani was standing at the edge of the ocean looking out at the horizon. He'd call her name, but she wouldn't turn around. He'd run toward her, but the distance never closed. And then she'd disappear, just fade into the mist. He'd wake up sweating. He believed the answer was still out there. Hidden. Waiting. He just didn't know it would take 25 years, and a new generation of investigators, to find it. But somewhere in the back of his mind, Mayho always knew one thing. Whoever took Lani Kapule was still out there, walking free, living a normal life. And that thought kept him up at night. By 2015, Lani Kapule had been missing for 17 years. Maui Kapule no longer cried. She'd run out of tears somewhere around year 5. Now she just existed in a state of permanent grief, a wound that never healed, a question that never got answered. She kept Lani's room exactly as it had been in 1998. The bed made, the posters on the wall, dolphins, sea turtles, a faded image of the ocean at sunset. The journal on the nightstand, its pages filled with Lani's dreams. Every year on Lani's birthday, July 3rd, Malia baked her favorite cake. Pineapple upside down. She'd light 14 candles, the same number Lani had been when she disappeared, and sing happy birthday in an empty kitchen. She couldn't bring herself to add more candles. Lani would always be 14. Koa rarely spoke about Lani. The pain was too much. He threw himself into work, into the ocean, into anything that kept him from thinking. But at night, alone in the dark, he'd wonder, did she suffer? Was it quick? Did she call for him? The not knowing was torture. Lani's siblings, now adults with families of their own, carried survivor's guilt. Why had they lived full lives while Lani's ended at 14? They named daughters after her. They scattered flowers in the ocean every year on the anniversary of her disappearance. But it never felt like enough. Grief at least has closure. You bury the body. You hold a funeral. You say goodbye. But this was limbo. A purgatory of unanswered questions. Malia often wondered, was Lani alive somewhere, living under a different name? Had she been trafficked? Was she out there trying to find her way home? Or had she been gone since that day in 1998? The wondering was unbearable. But giving up felt like betrayal. So the Kapules existed in a strange in-between, neither moving forward nor letting go. And Lani remained frozen in time. A 14-year-old girl in a purple hoodie, smiling in photos that grew more faded with every passing year. A ghost. A memory. A daughter who never came home. In early 2023, the Maui Police Department established a cold case unit. It was long overdue. Dozens of unsolved cases sat in storage, files yellowing, evidence degrading, families still waiting for answers. The unit was small, just 3 detectives, but they were dedicated. Detective Leilani Akana volunteered to lead it. Akana was a 15-year veteran of Maui PD, sharp and relentless. She'd grown up in Lahaina, and she remembered when Lani disappeared. She'd been 12 years old at the time. She remembered the fear, the vigils, the way the whole island seemed to hold its breath. She remembered wondering if it could happen to her. Now, 25 years later, she had a chance to give Lani's family answers. Akana started with the Kapule case. She requested every file, every piece of evidence, every witness statement. She spent weeks reading, cross-referencing, building a timeline. And she noticed something odd. The backpack. The location where it was found, a remote hiking trail miles from where Lani disappeared, made no sense. It felt staged, deliberate. Akana ran a geographic analysis. Who had access to that trail? Who would know it well enough to hide evidence there? She cross-referenced names from the original investigation. One name appeared multiple times but had never been seriously considered. David Keller. Age 43 in 1998. Science teacher at Maui Prep. Keller had been interviewed briefly after Lani's disappearance. He'd been her teacher. But he had an alibi. He'd claimed he was at a faculty meeting until 4 p.m. The alibi checked out at the time. No one dug deeper. But Akana did. She obtained Keller's cell phone records from 1998, archived from an old subpoena that had been filed but never fully investigated. Cell phone tracking wasn't as sophisticated back then, but the records still existed. And they told a story. On February 12, 1998, at approximately 4 p.m., Keller's phone pinged a cell tower near the West Maui Mountains, the same area where Lani's backpack would later be found. Akana's heart raced. The faculty meeting ended at 3 p.m. That gave Keller a window. A 47-minute window that perfectly aligned with Lani's disappearance. She pulled his employment records. Keller had left Maui Prep in June 1999, just over a year after Lani vanished. He'd moved to Oregon, worked at a private school there for a decade, then returned to Hawaii in 2015. He was living in Kihei now, just 20 minutes from Lahaina, working as a substitute teacher. Akana felt sick. For 25 years, David Keller had been hiding in plain sight, teaching children, living a normal life. While Lani's family suffered, while the island mourned, while detectives lost sleep, Keller had simply moved on. But Akana needed more than cell tower data. She needed concrete evidence. She needed proof. She started digging into Keller's background. No criminal record. Married. 2 adult children. Well-liked in his community. On paper he was clean. But Akana wasn't looking at paper anymore. She was looking for cracks. And she was about to find them. Detective Akana moved carefully. She couldn't tip Keller off. If he suspected he was under investigation, he might flee. Or destroy evidence. She had one chance to get this right. She started by interviewing former students and colleagues from Maui Prep, people who'd known Keller in 1998. Most remembered him as friendly. Helpful. Maybe a little too friendly. One former student, now 38 years old, living in California, agreed to speak with Akana over the phone. Her name was Jennifer Costa. Mr. Keller was nice, Jennifer said carefully. But looking back, there were moments that felt off. He'd offer me rides home after school. He'd find reasons to keep me after class. He'd ask personal questions, about my family, my friends, whether I had a boyfriend. Did he ever do anything inappropriate? Kana asked. Not exactly, Jennifer said. But I remember feeling uncomfortable around him. I stopped staying after class. I made sure I was never alone with him. Other former students shared similar stories. Nothing concrete. Nothing actionable. But a pattern emerged. Keller had a habit of lingering too long with certain students. Always girls. Always around 13 or 14 years old. Akana's instinct screamed. She dug into Keller's movements on February 12, 1998. His faculty meeting alibi ended at 3 p.m. That was confirmed. But what happened after? She obtained old surveillance footage from a gas station near Maui Prep. Footage that had been archived but never analyzed in detail. Forensic analysts enhanced it frame by frame. There, at 3:52 p.m., was a vehicle matching Keller's 1996 Toyota Camry. Light blue. Oregon license plate. Keller had moved from Oregon to Maui in 1995. The car was heading toward the West Maui Mountains. Akana had enough for a search warrant. On March 15, 2023, a team of officers executed the warrant at Keller's home in Kihei. Keller wasn't there, he was at work. Officers seized computers, old files, boxes of photos. And in a locked shed behind his house, buried beneath gardening tools and paint cans, they found it. Lani's journal. The one that had been inside her backpack in 1998. The one that should have been evidence. The one the police had catalogued and photographed when the backpack was found. But it hadn't been in the backpack when it was discovered. Keller had taken it. Kept it. Hidden it for 25 years. A trophy. Akana stared at the journal, its cover worn, pages yellowed, Lani's handwriting still visible on every page. She had him. David Keller was going to pay for what he'd done. On March 18, 2023, Detective Leilani Akana and a team of officers arrived at David Keller's home in Kihei. It was 6:30 a.m. The sun was just beginning to rise over the ocean. Keller answered the door in a bathrobe, coffee mug in hand. His gray hair was tousled. He looked tired. Ordinary. He smiled. Can I help you? Akana showed him the warrant. His smile faded. David Keller, she said, her voice steady, you're under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of Lani Kapule. Keller's face went pale. The coffee mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the tile floor. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just stared, his mouth slightly open, his eyes wide. Officers moved in. They cuffed him. Read him his rights. Led him to the patrol car. As they drove away, neighbors stood on their porches, watching in stunned silence. David Keller. The friendly substitute teacher. The man who coached Little League. The man who waved at them every morning. A murderer. News spread across Maui within hours. By noon it was national news. Maui cold case solved after 25 years. Teacher arrested in 1998, murder of teen girl. The story shocked the true crime community. How had Keller evaded justice for so long? How had no one suspected him? Parents who trusted him with their children felt sick. Former students questioned their memories. Had there been signs? Had they missed something? The comments sections on news articles exploded. People who'd known Keller couldn't believe it. He seemed so normal, they said. He was always so nice. That's the thing about predators. They don't look like monsters. They look like neighbors, teachers, friends. Lani Kapule got the call from Detective Akana at 7:15 a.m. We've made an arrest, Akana said gently. Malia collapsed. Her knees buckled. Koa caught her. After 25 years of not knowing, they finally had an answer. It wasn't the answer they'd wanted. Lani wasn't alive. She wasn't coming home. But it was an answer. And it was something. For the first time in 25 years, Maui Kapule felt something other than despair. She felt rage. And beneath the rage, buried deep, fragile as glass, she felt the faintest flicker of closure. The man who killed her daughter was finally going to face justice. David Keller didn't confess immediately. For 4 days he sat in the interrogation room at Maui Police Headquarters, silent. Arms crossed. Eyes fixed on the table. His lawyer advised him not to speak. "Don't say a word," the attorney repeated. "Let them prove it." But Detective Akana was patient. She laid out the evidence methodically. The cell tower data. The gas station footage. The journal found in his shed. "We know you were there, David," she said. "We know you took Lani. We know you kept her journal. The evidence doesn't lie." Keller stared at the table. Akana leaned forward. "Lani's family deserves the truth. They've waited 25 years. Her mother still sets a place for her at dinner. Her father drives the route she should have walked home, still hoping she'll appear. You owe them the truth." Silence. Then, on March 22, 2023, Keller finally spoke. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he whispered. His lawyer tensed. "David, don't. I didn't mean to hurt her." Akana activated the recording device. "Tell me what happened, David." And he did. On February 12, 1998, Keller had seen Lani walking home from school. It was starting to drizzle, light rain typical for Maui in February. He was driving home, saw her walking alone, and pulled over. "Lani, you want a ride?" he'd asked. "It's starting to rain." Lani had hesitated. Students weren't supposed to accept rides from teachers. But Mr. Keller was nice. He'd always been nice. And it was raining. She got in. He didn't drive her home. He drove toward the mountains. Said he needed to make a quick stop. Lani started to feel uneasy. "Where are we going?" she'd asked. "Just a quick stop," Keller had said. When he pulled over on a deserted stretch of road, Lani knew something was wrong. She tried to get out. Keller grabbed her. She fought. She screamed. She clawed at his face. Keller panicked. He didn't plan this. He didn't think it through. He just reacted. He grabbed her by the throat. Squeezed. Kept squeezing. Lani Kapule died at approximately 4:11 p.m. on February 12, 1998, in the front seat of David Keller's Toyota Camry. She was 14 years old. Keller sat with her body for 20 minutes trying to figure out what to do. Then he drove to a remote area of the West Maui Mountains, a place he knew from hiking, and buried her. He took her backpack. 3 weeks later, he planted it on the hiking trail to mislead police. It worked. For 25 years, it worked. When Akana asked where Lani's body was buried, Keller claimed he couldn't remember exactly. The area was vast, he said. It had been 25 years. Investigators believe he's withholding the location for leverage, hoping to use it in plea negotiations. Akana asked one final question. "Why, David? Why Lani?" Keller's answer was chilling. "I don't know. I don't know. No motive. No reason. Just opportunity. And evil."